Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Faceoff, KXSC's weekly hockey talk show. I'm your host, Graham Jacobs. There was no show last week because of President's Day, so this week's edition of the Faceoff will recap the major headlines from the last 2 weeks of the NHL. Let's begin the show by discussing the end of a tumultuous era for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Scott Howson's time as GM for the Columbus Blue Jackets came to an end this month, and around the hockey world, it wasn't a moment too soon. Throughout the Blue Jackets' 13-year history, they've only made the playoffs once. The team has had 8 head coaches, full-time and interim, during that span. They have earned the reputation as the league's laughingstock due to their frequent last-place finishes in the standings. In 2006-2007, the Scott Howson was hired as GM, and they made the playoffs in Houson's second year as the general manager in the 2008-2009 season. That is, unfortunately, the only time they have made the playoffs. They finished that season with a 41-31-10 record, earning 92 points on the season. A big part of their success that year was rookie goaltender Steve Mason, who sported a 33-20-7 record with 10 shutouts, courtesy of a .229 goals against average and a .916 save percentage. Mason's 10 shutouts weren't just the most among rookie goaltenders, they were the most among any goaltender in the NHL that season. He won the Calder Trophy that season as the best rookie, and also received a nomination for the Vezina Trophy for best goaltender, pitting him against the likes of Tim Thomas and Roberto Luongo. It appeared the Blue Jackets, based on Mason's performance that season, had finally found their franchise goaltender after Marc Denis struggled early on in the team's early years, and Pascal Leclerc couldn't get past injury issues, and this is the first time that apparently the Blue Jackets had found some stable net presence. The Jackets did get swept by the Red Wings in 4 games in the first round of the 2009 Stanley Cup playoffs, but Howson had seemingly constructed a team that would remain competitive and not finish last in the standings every season. Unfortunately, this story does not have a fairy tale ending. Since the Blue Jackets made the playoffs that season, a lot has gone downhill for them. It starts with Steve Mason again. Steve Mason has not been able to match his performance he had during his rookie season. Since the beginning of the 2009-2010 season, he's gone 62-79-19, and he's averaged a .313 goals against average and .899 save percentage. Perhaps those stats can be attributed to how Mason actually did not know until the second half of the 2011-2012 season that his pads were considered too small for NHL standards, and that he could wear pads that actually fit him. Nonetheless, the Blue Jackets finished fifth in the Central. The Blue Jackets have finished fifth in the Central Division every year since 2009, coming nowhere close to the playoffs each and every time. While Steve Mason didn't help the Blue Jackets' cause, 2009-2010 also started a downfall for Scott Howson. Howson fired head coach Ken Hitchcock on February 3rd, 2010, and Ken Hitchcock is still the only coach to have ever led the franchise to the playoffs. At the 2010 trade deadline, the Blue Jackets had a fire sale. They traded Frederick Mobin and Milan Jurčina, to the Los Angeles Kings and Washington Capitals, respectively, receiving conditional picks in return. Unfortunately for the Blue Jackets, the conditions in both trades weren't met. So the Blue Jackets came away empty-headed after trading away 2 roster players. Howson made 5 trades in total on deadline day, saying goodbye to Raffi Torres, Matthew Roy, and Alexander Picard. Though unlike the first 2 trades mentioned above, the Jackets did get players in return in those trades. The trades Howson made at the trade deadline that year didn't necessarily help the team, and neither did Scott Howson's coaching hire in the 2010-2011 season. Scott Arniel, hired during the 2010 offseason to replace Hitchcock, led the Blues to a subpar 34-35-13 record for 81 points. This was a marginal improvement over the 2009-2010 season that saw them finish with a 32-35-15 record for 79 points that was led by the dual efforts of Ken Hitchcock and interim coach Claude Noel. And after a disappointing 2010-2011 campaign, Howson figured he needed to make some moves and establish a win-now mentality. On June 23rd, 2011, to borrow a quote from the President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a date which will live in infamy, well, for the Blue Jackets fans at least, Howson traded the promising young forward Jakub Voracek and the team's 2011 first-round pick and third-round pick to the Philadelphia Flyers for center Jeff Carter. The Flyers used that first-round pick, it was 8th overall, to select Sean Couturier, who played 77 games that year for the Flyers and scored 13 goals and assisted on 14 others for 27 points in his rookie campaign. Voracek scored 18 goals and had 31 assists. 18 goals were a career high for Jakub Voracek. 6 days later, the Blue Jackets traded a 5th-round pick to the Montreal Canadiens for the rights to defenseman James Wisniewski. And 2 days later, Howson signed Wisniewski to a 6-year, $33 million contract. Now, with the addition of Jeff Carter and having Rick Nash already on team, and then adding an offensive defenseman in James Wisniewski, the Blue Jackets actually looked like a pretty decent team on paper. And Wisniewski was brought in to help quarterback the power play for the Blue Jackets as he scored 7 power play goals. He scored 10 goals on the year and assisted on 22 others with both the Islanders and Canadiens in a career year in 2010-2011. Jeff Carter, the year before he was traded to the Blue Jackets, had 36 goals for the Flyers, and Rick Nash had 32 goals with the Jackets. So, on paper, the Blue Jackets have 2 30-goal scorers on their top 2 lines and an offensive defenseman to help improve the power play. If things work out, the Jackets could actually be a force to be reckoned with. Well, things did not go according to plan for the Blue Jackets, and as a matter of fact, the moves just blew up in Scott Howson's face. Despite the off-season moves, the Blue Jackets did not win a single game in the 2011-2012 season until October 25th, and by that point, they were already 1-7-1. Scott Arniel, the head coach that replaced Ken Hitchcock, he was fired on January 8th, 2012, with the team in last place in the Central Division at 11-25-5, and interim coach Todd Richards took over for the rest of the season. 2011-2012 was a major disaster already, and the Blue Jackets had another fire sale at the 2012 trade deadline. First to go was forward Antoine Vermette, who was traded to the Phoenix Coyotes for injured goaltender Curtis McElhaney, a 2012 second-round pick, and a 2013 conditional pick. Next to go was Carter, who was traded for when they traded Jakub Voracek and the pick that led to Sean Couturier and their third-round pick. They traded that guy to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for defenseman Jack Johnson and a conditional 2012 or 2013 first-round pick. The Blue Jackets elected to take the Kings pick in 2013. Now, Carter didn't necessarily help Scott Howson out. He never wanted to leave Philadelphia in the first place since he signed an 11-year, $58 million extension with the Flyers that included a no-trade clause that kicked in at the end of the 2012. It kicked in at the beginning of the 2012-2013 season. Check that. Wherever he was after 2011-2012, he was stuck. And he did not want to be stuck in Columbus after playing in Philadelphia for the beginning of his career. The biggest trade target, though, for the Blue Jackets was franchise player and captain Rick Nash, who was not traded at the deadline. Nash was by far the most important player for the Blue Jackets, and if he was going to be traded, Howson would want somebody of his caliber in return, and he never got it. Everything that teams offered him wasn't good enough for him, and so he held on to him. Now, not trading Rick Nash wasn't necessarily considered a mistake by Scott Howson. However, telling the media after the trade deadline had passed that Nash asked for the trade was a terrible mistake. And that put the Blue Jackets fans, Scott Howson, and Rick Nash in a no-win situation. Nothing positive could ever come from Scott Howson telling the media that the most important player for the Blue Jackets was the one who asked for the trade. Columbus finished that year at 29, 46, and 7, dead last in the NHL standings with 65 points. And during the 2012 offseason, Howson finally traded Rick Nash, along with Steven Delisle, and a conditional third-round pick to the New York Rangers in exchange for Artem Anisimov, Brandon Dubinsky, Tim Erickson, and New York's 2013 first-round pick. In 674 games, Nash tallied 289 goals and 258 assists for 547 points, and he left as the Jackets' all-time leader in all of those categories. The Jackets were not going to win any trade involving Rick Nash, and although they got 3 roster players in return for Nash, none of them can actually really be considered a replacement for him. That's not necessarily saying what they got in return. That's not necessarily saying that they're not any good. They're just nowhere near the player that Rick Nash is. In a span of 13 months, the Blue Jackets lost Jakub Voracek, the 2011 first-round pick that became Sean Couturier, Antoine Vermette, Jeff Carter, and Rick Nash. It was a devastating season for the Blue Jackets regarding personnel movement, and it's going to take years to recover from Howson's mistakes as he gambled away the future to try and win in 2011. On February 12, 2013, Blue Jackets president John Davidson fired Scott Howson. The team was 4-7-2 at the time of the firing. Now, to be fair to Howson, while he did make some major mistakes in 2011, there's actually some pretty good news ahead for the Blue Jackets. Columbus will have 3 first-round picks in the 2013 NHL draft. They will have their own first-round pick, the Rangers' first-round pick, and the LA Kings' first-round pick as a result of trading Rick Nash and Jeff Carter, respectively. The Springfield Falcons, the Blue Jackets AHL affiliate, are one of the best teams in the AHL and are currently second place in the Eastern Conference with a 30-12-4-3 record, earning 67 points in the process. One of the reasons the Falcons are doing really well is because of the success story that is Jonathan Odi Marchessault. Odi Marchessault was signed by Scott Howson as an undrafted free agent in 2012, and he currently leads the team with 16 goals and 33 assists for 49 points in 50 games. He made his NHL debut in January 31st, 2013, and while he's back with the Falcons now, I would expect him to be on the Blue Jackets next season if he continues this pace that he's at right now. The Blue Jackets also, along with Odi Marchessault, have prospects like TJ Tynan, Mike Riley, Seth Ambrose, and Kevin Lynch developing in the NCAA. And once they're finished playing 3 or 4 years of college hockey, they could possibly make the jump straight to the NHL or play a full year of AHL hockey to ease them into the NHL. Junior prospect Boone Jenner and Swedish prospect Oscar Dansk are also not that far away from making an impact on the Blue Jackets. The man hired to replace Scott Howson was Jarmo Kekalainen, who is now the first European general manager in the National Hockey League. Kekalainen had previously worked with Davidson while they were with the St. Louis Blues, who are now one of the top teams in the Western Conference thanks to Kekalainen's keen scouting abilities that contributed to great drafts. And in case you're wondering about payrolls, the Blues have the lowest payroll in the NHL, and they are still one of the better teams in the Western Conference. Kekalainen worked for the Blues as assistant general manager and director of amateur scouting from 2002 to 2010. Here are some of the players the Blues drafted during that time. Defenseman Alex Pietrangelo, picked 4th overall in 2008. TJ Oshie, picked 25th overall in 2005. Patrick Berglund, picked 25th overall in 2006. David Perron, 26th overall in 2007. David Backes, 62nd overall in 2003. Now, while the other 4 were first-round picks, Backes is currently the captain of the team right now. All of those players for the Blues make up their current core. When the Blues got lower first-round picks because of the success the team had in the early to mid-2000s, Kekalainen's scouting abilities helped the Blues select great players in those lower 20s picks in the first round. Backes, Perron, and Oshie make up the top line for the Blues, and that line is combined for 38 points this season among all 3 players. Patrick Berglund has 9 goals on the year already in 18 games. He scored 19 in 82 games last season and has a chance of passing that total in fewer games. Pietrangelo is one of the best puck-moving defensemen in the game and a fantastic power play quarterback for the Blues, and it makes sense because the Blues are converting on 30% of their power plays, largely thanks to him. He was named to the second All-Star team after the 2011-2012 season. The Blue Jackets are getting this guy as their general manager. He is a drafting wizard with a proven track record. And he's got 3 first-round picks to work with this summer. I would expect the Blue Jackets to make some very good picks, not only this year, but in the future. Now, to wrap things up, while Howson was able to provide the Blue Jackets with a solid farm system, most notably with the Springfield Falcons, he's unfortunately going to be most remembered for the Jeff Carter fiasco and the Rick Nash debacle. But with draft guru Jarmo Kekalainen at the helm, the future looks very bright for the Blue Jackets. Coming up after the break, conference realignment. What will it look like? Stay tuned.